Well, let me give you the quick rundown of what we're covering today. This was in the email for this, but here it is. This is part 2 of 3. This is my brief guide to helping students create a great outline. Outlining is so, so important. It's something that I think is under-discussed and underdone by students. It's something that when I did the first iteration of the tool last year, I had a small module and I was like, I need to make this a whole thing. I need a feature whole thing. So today we're going to be focused on basically how do you help students get to that outline part. If you missed part 1, you can see the recording, but we talked about brainstorming and helping students pick between, a variety of topics. So today we're talking about why outlining is so darn important, a little bit on why I think students don't create outlines. I'll go through a couple examples, briefly how to outline a narrative, challenges-based essay, how to outline a montage, which is to say non-challenges-based essay, 4 things to look for in each of those, and how to guide students to creating an outline when you're using the Choose Your Own Adventure tool, which I'll show in just a minute. Most of you have already seen it. And we'll probably spend about 42 minutes on that, and then we'll do Q&A. But please post questions throughout. Stevie, who's standing by, is going to be taking your questions and posting them right here. And then we will do those at the end. And then we'll end probably by 5 minutes till. And then next time we're talking about how to give great feedback to students once they've created outlines and written their drafts, etc. For those of you watching the recorded version who don't know what CEG for Schools is, what is everybody on this call so far pretty much signed up for? It's basically my series of boot camps. We've added some options, and we're going to email out about this tomorrow because it's time to go ahead and start getting students signed up. But we've got the May 24th through 28th option. And what it is basically is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'm doing hour-and-a-half sessions where students will brainstorm, write, and revise a draft of their personal statement. I'm doing a second version, June 14th through 18th, and then August 9th through 13th. Folks ask me, what do you recommend? And of course, as college essay guy, I'm like, get them as soon as you can, meaning, the May or June one, if possible, because then students have July and August to write. If the May and June dates don't work out for you, why, let's get them in August. But after that, in October, we've got a supplemental essay boot camp, which is going to be sort of like a, hour-and-a-half crash course on the different supplemental essays with enough time, hopefully, to, write them by those November deadlines. And then for students for counselors who've got students doing the UCs, I've got an early boot camp in June on the UC personal insight questions. And then we've got one in October that's like a 3-part one. So, included in CEG for Schools is the virtual PDs like this one, and then some other resources inside the tool, and then this Choose Your Own Adventure tool. And the way it works basically, let me scroll down to this, is the simple version of this is and this is kind of the map for each one. We're doing brainstorming on the first session, outlining and writing, and then revising and up-leveling. And that's pretty much the format for all of these sessions. It goes brainstorming, outlining and writing, and then revising. Just a reminder to folks, we are serious about pay what you can. We've got many folks, I don't know if it's most technically, have signed up for 0, and that's totally fine. If folks have a budget, why, that's great. If you have, just a little bit of budget, we've got this option in the middle. Where does the money go? A third of it goes to the Matchlighter Scholarship to offer free essay and application help. A third of it goes to causes like givewell.org, which I recommend checking out. And then a third helps us keep the lights on. So let's jump in. Let's jump into the content. So first I said, let's talk about why outlining is just so darn important. So when it comes to outlining, and this is inside the Choose Your Own Adventure tool. So all of the content, if you're like, where's the handout? It's all inside the tool that you have access to. So here, the way that I frame this is, why students should create an outline before they start. And the simple analogy is like, try building a house without having blueprints, and I think sometimes students are just kind of like, I'm pretty sure I can just write it. And that was me in high school. That was probably me until I was into my 20s, until I saw that actually it was more efficient to create an outline. Another thing is students think sometimes it's going to take too long. And what I say to those students is like, hey, it might take you a little time, but it's a kind of stitch in time saves 9 thing. And just spending a little time early on is going to help you see, is this idea actually going to work? Or is it likely to work? And then another thing that students, I think, potentially run into is they're just not sure what goes into a personal statement outline. So just pointing them, and what I'll say is like pointing them to this part of the tool and saying, don't skip over the outlining part, is going to be important. And it's why I've devoted, a whole section on it. So writing your first draft, yes, but really, I mean, the outlining is kind of setting up for writing that first draft. So I think it's important to just, if you're leading, whether you're leading a workshop with students or you're just mentioning this briefly, or you're talking to them one-on-one about this, trying to sharpshoot what are those potential issues that they have with outlining is a good idea, I think. So what does a sample outline look like? Well, if you were on last time's session, I talked about montage outlines. And a montage is basically finding a thematic thread and connecting it to many different sides of the student. Now, when we're trying to create a montage outline, what we need is the theme or topic. Then we need some examples. And ideally, we're connecting each of those examples to a value. Now, that was kind of confusing, so let me give you a specific example. So this student chose what I call the essence objects, or objects in my room essay path, montage path. And she was writing an essay on the stickers on her laptop. And so she has an intro that basically says, for me, the stickers on my laptop provide a passport showing you all the places I've been, but each one represents a different side of me. And so for her outline, she needs examples of stickers. For example, the We Heart design sticker. And then she connects that sticker to the values that she wants to show, her artistic side, design, experimentation, and then repeat, right? So she's got this sticker that says common threads, and that shows her authenticity, her commitment to authenticity, her commitment to her open-mindedness. And then she's got the poop emoji that it shows her goofy side, her connection with her brother. And so each one of these, obviously, to whatever extent students are able, giving examples of those, how you could demonstrate, how art, design, and experimentation have manifested in your life. That's what you're creating in the outline. And so these can be relatively simple. But as we think about creating an essay, a lot of times students dive into like the words and the language. And you've got, as a friend of mine once said, you've got your words muscles and you've got your ideas muscles. And outlining is the time to strengthen those ideas muscles. Oftentimes, a lot of the work is going to happen not even on the page, but it's just like thinking of stuff. And what ends up on the page is actually just a very few words like this, right? But it's a chance to see, is this thing going to will it fly, as Pat Flynn says. So that's a simple example of a montage outline. And then I'm not going to go through this whole essay right now, but you'll see inside the tool. Actually, let me just link to this, because you should be able to jump in. Let's see. So, she's got this, you can see my screen. Yeah, good. Okay. So you've got this, opening that basically sets up the theme of the laptop stickers. And then I've she highlighted in bold all the different stickers. And she says where they are on her laptop. So it creates this sort of repetition. And then each one of them shows a different side of her. So the We Heart design talks about how art has been a constant for as long as she can remember. And she gives examples of that. Design means more to me than just branding and marketing. It gives me the opportunity to experiment with texture, perspective, and contrast, helping me refine my professional style. Awesome. Love this. Common threads is the other example I gave. She talks about the 2017 TEDx Youth at Austin event. And for years, I've been interested in street artists and musicians in downtown Austin who are so unapologetically themselves. So this shows her connection to that authenticity and, finding her own voice, being inspired by them. TED gives me the opportunity to help other youth understand new perspectives by exposing them to the diversity of Austin, where culture is created, not just consumed. And so I'm going to show you my face for just a second. The goal here is like, what are the different sides of me? And how is this connective theme or thread? How does it connect to those different sides? And you can brainstorm this. I tell students one of two different ways. You can start with, what are the different laptop stickers, right? And then what different values could those show? Or the student could start with, what are the large, so let me flip it. You could talk about the different laptop stickers, or you could talk about what are those different qualities that I want to show? And what is a thing that would help connect me to those different things? Now that's a little bit harder to do. I find that it's actually easier sometimes for students to find that topic that, as I talked about last time, is somewhat elastic, which means to connect to different sides of you, and somewhat ideally uncommon, which means that it's something that other students aren't going to be writing about. So let me jump over to the narrative side, because if students are working on a montage outline, that's great. And what this walks them through is for each of these different outlines, it's going to guide them through a different, path. So for example, if they want to write a career essay, they just go through, what they need is a potential topic, 4 to 7 different examples, and at least one value for each example. So for this, I walk them through how, write a simple, clear opening. Don't get caught up too much on that. And then if you're working on, for example, a career essay, what we need is different qualities or values that will serve you eventually in that career. And so for each of these, curiosity, meticulousness, dexterity, give me a specific example of how you've manifested that value in your life. And then, as I tell students pretty often, don't worry too much about the ending. Just, it needs to end when you're writing your first draft. So I know I'm going fast, but I'm really welcome to, I really welcome questions on this. But let me give you sort of, briefly how the narrative side works. So when it comes to, actually, let me pause for a second and see if you have other questions about how the montage works. And by the way, if you couldn't see the link that I posted, it's because you just need to be logged into your CEG for Schools account. But let's see if any questions coming up about montage. Let's see. Let's see. Scrolling down. Okay. If you've got any questions about the montage, paste it in here and I'll come back to it. All right. So let's talk about how to outline a narrative draft. And this is for students who've decided that they have a challenge that they want to write about. So here we go. And again, in terms of why students do this, it's some of the same reasons, right? I'm pretty sure I can just write it. It may be a good idea, but it's going to take too long. And I just don't know what goes into a personal statement outline. So I've repeated that on both sides of the tool so that students will make sure that we're sort of trying to, I guess, prime them for, hey, this is probably a good idea. And here are some reasons why you may not be doing it. Okay. So here's a simple outline for the narrative essay that students will have read earlier on in the tool. So just to remind you, last week, when students go through the brainstorming section, they do that feelings and needs exercise that helps them generate in about 20 minutes a potential topic, challenges-based topic. And once they've done that, they should have some ideas. But what this is going to walk them through is how do you ultimately create an outline that'll lead to an essay. So what the outline is going to eventually look like is this. They're going to have their challenges, which they'll just bullet point briefly what they are here. The effects, which is to say, and by the way, there's no reason why these should be bolded. I think that was just a quirk of the way that it was pasted. Stevie, would you mind actually unbolding these? Not right now, but sometime, maybe tomorrow or the day after, because people are gonna be like, why are these the most important ones? And then the effects, what were the impacts of the challenge? This is so important, and students often, I think, zoom past this. Like they'll write about the challenges, but we don't always get a sense of how those challenges affected them. And then what they did about it. This is so essential for the middle of the essay, right? In this case, I've bolded on purpose this time the different verbs that would basically help us. And I'm going to walk through some specific questions to help students get to this point. But I just wanted to kind of give you where we're headed. What are those verbs that are going to give a sense of really what that student has done? Became my own teacher, learned how to fix a bike, swim, socialize, found a job to help pay bills. The reason I want students to see these bolded verbs is I want them to be thinking about in terms of like, okay, what are the different things I've done? Because oftentimes by having to specify them in terms of verbs, they're going to start to think of more and different examples of things that they've done. And that's really going to help thicken the middle of the essay. Because I find oftentimes, especially on a first draft, students do a great job of the challenges, but sometimes it's a little bit weaker. Maybe you've seen this on what they've done about it. And so if they see a bunch of examples, it's like, oh, they'll start to think through that. And then what did you learn from the experience? And I'll get to how to help students brainstorm that in just a second. But I just wanted to kind of do a 30,000 foot view of like, here's what a narrative outline can look like. Here are the challenges and the effects. That's a third of the essay. Here's what I've done about it, a third of the essay. And then here's what I learned. Now, in the case of the example essay that I'm not going to go through right now, it's more like challenges and effects are probably like 40 to 50%. And then what I did about it is mainly like 35%, maybe 30 to 35%. And then what I learned is like the last 10 to 15%. And this is a successful essay. The student got into a highly selective school. It really tells the story well. The reason I'm saying 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 is that I think it's good to get students to sort of start to expand on, like I said, the what I did about it and what I learned. And if they're having to go like, oh, a third, well, that's a lot. And they may not ultimately end up there, but I want them to be thinking in those terms. So how do we help students actually outline each of these portions? So for the challenges and effects, here's my advice. I tell students to look at their feelings and needs exercise. They know what their challenges are, but make sure you're bullet pointing those effects. And if they're not sure, well, what were the effects? Here are some questions that students can consider as they're outlining. For example, how was your upbringing different from that of other young people? Now, they may not know that, or may not have a sense of that, but just asking that question can be a powerful one. Was there a particular moment that you can pinpoint when the challenges really started? That could spring them into being like, oh, well, that could be the opening for my essay. Based on your challenge, what new responsibilities did you take on? Did anything happen to make things worse? That could create a second interesting paragraph. So here's how things started. And then to make things worse, boom, second paragraph. What information do we need in order to be able to understand how bad things really were for you? Why this was such a big deal? What kinds of things were you denied or denied access to based on your challenge? Who else was impacted by the challenge you've listed? Are there other effects you haven't listed yet? So that's sort of a way of getting a sense of like, this wasn't impacting just me, it was impacting my family or community members. Is there anything you tried to do to overcome your challenge that didn't work? This is a good one to get us on board and to create like rooting for the protagonist, right? The author, but also a sense of like the student worked really hard and tried a bunch of different things. And maybe those things didn't all work, or at least didn't work initially, but it kind of builds suspense and tension in the story. So when they do find the thing that did work, it's like, that release of tension is even more satisfying. And then is one of your challenges actually an effect of something that happened before? So sometimes students list, my mom and dad were arguing as a challenge, but actually there was something that happened before that that led to the arguments. So maybe it was dad losing his job, and so then they can sometimes shift, and put another challenge in that first column of the feelings and needs exercise. And then they realize, oh, wow, there's a thing that happened and that led to this. So that was one of the effects actually. So those are some good questions for students to ask as they're thinking about the first third of the essay. When it comes to the what I did about it part, here are some things to think about. And by the way, all of these things are things that I'm going to walk students through when they're doing day 2 of the boot camp. So if you're like, how do I remember all this? I'm not going to be able to teach them all this. Don't worry. If they're signed up for CEG for Schools, you're going to be sending them a link. I'm going to be walking them through the same content. This is really just to give you a sense of the content that I'm going to be sharing with them so you can have a common language. When they're sending you their essays and they're like, I'm trying to figure out the what I did about it part, you'll know what they're talking about. So when it comes to expanding on the what I did about it part, this is what we're going for. We're looking for a list of, these different things that they've done to overcome the challenges they faced. And again, I mentioned active verbs here and I put it in bold. And I give a bunch of questions that students can use to brainstorm those bullet points. So did you accomplish anything? If so, can you give us evidence? We grew club membership by 50%. Did you gain any management or leadership skills? I campaigned for class treasurer and I won. What people skills or communication skills did you gain? And again, answering these questions with those active verbs. I addressed my concerns with my father directly. Financial skills, creative or design skills. Any of these are going to help them start to think. And what's cool about these questions is that they're going to start to remember stuff. Because a lot of times you've seen this, students won't remember what they've done. They'll be like, I don't feel like I've done anything, or I can't really remember. And you start to ask them these questions, or you just give them these questions and they start to go, oh yeah, okay. And this is the part that I think where it's really important to point them back to. And I'll give you a little advice, especially in our next session, about how to point students into the tool. Whom did you help and how did you help them? I advocated for a club specifically for supporting women in STEM. Proposal accepted. I was chosen as the club's leader. Over the next year, I mentored more than 30 sophomores and juniors. When you look at a great college essay sentence, or a couple sentences, these active verbs are oftentimes those things that are really giving us a sense of this is a starter. This is a doer. Did you learn any technical skills? How to build stuff? Any analytical or research skills? Did you organize anything? Develop or demonstrate any teaching abilities? So all of these different things. And I tried to give 10 questions. I didn't want to overwhelm students with 30 questions, but that would help them start to get brainstorming so they can create, again, these bullet points for the middle of their challenges-based essay. Okay. As in every module in each of these tools, I'm telling them to spend a few minutes and I give them an action item to make a list of all the things that they've done to overcome. So I try and, throughout the tool be like, here's the thing to actually do. And if you get stuck, here's some things to consider. So I won't go through these right now because they're here in the tool, but I just want you to know that like at the end of each of these modules, it'll be telling them exactly, what to do. All right. So for the third part of the essay, what I learned, and again, we're talking about challenges-based essays. The main thing I say is focus on values in the end. Take a look at that values list that students will have already gone through the values list in their workbook and see if you can pick 3 or 4 that became really important to you as you were working through these challenges. So maybe it was independence. I realized throughout this whole process, going through these experiences with my dad, that I wanted to not only experience freedom for myself and for my mom, but I wanted to experience, help other women experience freedom and independence. Or autonomy, going through the experience of supporting my family and learning I was undocumented helped me realize that I wanted to have more freedom to make choices, not just for myself or for myself, what I was interested in, not just what they were interested in. Basically, so that sounds like it's selfish, but it's actually not in the context of the essay, which is I'm referring to essays elsewhere in the tool. But I tell students to just, if you can just try and phrase this in terms of a sentence or so, in terms of what you gained, that could become the ending for the essay. Let me see, there's some questions coming in. Do you read a student's outline first and then help them list the questions? Ooh, great question. I'm going to go through Pei-Ching. I'm going to go through and tell you how exactly to use this with students because you have a few different options. But I'll walk you through the content and then I'll spend about 5-10 minutes just talking about how do you actually use this with students. But I'm telling students here initially as they're walking through this to keep it simple. Now, actually, I'll explain that just a little bit. Students will be receiving this content on the boot camp in the weekly, in the daily, not weekly, but in the sessions, whether it's live or pre-recorded. And so they will be creating their outlines on their own. That's their homework assignment. And then I've given examples so they can kind of see how these look in the wild. So after day 2, their homework is to write their first draft. And this actually, Pei-Ching, is going to answer your question. So their homework, and you'll see exactly what they're saying. If you're working on your own, want to do a simple draft in 30 minutes, try this. Go into your workbook. So I have students create everything inside their Google Doc workbook and just take all of the bullet points that you've been brainstorming and just put them in your outline doc. And this is going to be the thing that they share with you. So you'll be able to see the way that they're making sense of this. And then what I tell them to do is set a timer for 30 minutes and to write their first draft based on this outline. Okay. Now, if students are using the montage path, which is to say not challenges, I'm telling them to do the same thing. To basically go in, take the outline that they've written, which is their topic, their 4 to 7 examples, the value connected to each one, and they're pasting that into their essay doc, their workbook, right? Their Google Doc. And then to go ahead and here's what it says, set a timer for 30 minutes and write your first draft based on this outline. So it's going to maybe take them longer than 30 minutes, but I say take 30 minutes and start your draft. If you need more time, take a break and then write for 30 minutes more and repeat until your draft is done. For some students, they're going to do 30 minutes. They're going to be like, all right, I'm good, right? Other students are going to, keep going for a couple hours. Some students are going to write multiple drafts, which is, it's going to be probably all over the board. At least that's the experience that I've had using this tool and using these resources in the workshops that I've led over the last year. Option B, what I tell them is if you have a partner or mentor nearby and you want to share with them what you have before you start, you could share your feelings and needs exercise with them and then have them tell your story back to you. And there's a little video that walks them through how to do that. And then I tell them, go ahead and create the bullet point outline. Now, notice this is just one of the options. If students don't have a partner or mentor nearby, that's okay. They can just do this option, which is like to do it on their own, right? And I tell them again, don't worry too much about the opening. Really expand on that, what I did and what I learned section. Don't worry about word count. Option C is the slightly more advanced option. And if students have a little more time, I walk them through the basic elements of a great movie. Inciting incident, the moment it all started. Status quo, give us some context. Why was this, why did this happen? Why was this such a big deal? Raise the stakes. What happened next? For some students, they'll be inspired by this. They'll be like, okay, yeah, this kind of fits my story. Was there a turning point, moment of truth when you decided to really become involved? What did you do? What else did you do? And then how did things turn out? What did you learn? So basically the format that I've been giving them, challenges, what I did about it, what I learned, maps onto this format, but it just kind of gives them a different paragraph by paragraph sort of walkthrough of this. Now, I used to teach this format, but I found that actually just breaking it up in terms of challenges, what I did, what I learned, was a little bit simpler for students. And it was easier to sort of, map it out as like a 1, 2, 3, guide. And then this, even though it still maps on, I kind of listed it here as like an option C, and I call it slightly more advanced because I do think it takes a little bit more time. But for some students, they're going to just jump right on that. And then I map out, here's how it looks based on the essay that you just read. This is an important reminder for students. You don't have to remind them of this because I remind them in the tool. Write your first draft within 24 hours of brainstorming, because I tell students it's like a dream that when you do your brainstorming, if you just wait a week, it's like a dream where you're going to totally forget what you were brainstorming. So, and I'm also trying to build momentum and get them moving through this. Okay. So once they do this, and again, this is their homework after day 2, after Wednesday of the boot camp, they have some options in terms of getting feedback. So it kind of depends on how you want to work with your students, but I congratulate them on writing a first draft with a little GIF from the office. And here are the things that students should be asking about each section of their essay, even before they send it to anybody, before they share with you their outline or anything. And these are questions I've already gone through, but I'm just going to highlight them for you because these are really good things to look for. And next time, when we get more deeply into how do you give students feedback on an outline or an essay, we're going to come back to these questions. But I want students to be thinking about, number 1, are the challenges in the essay clear and compelling? Do we understand what you went through and why it was a big deal? And some students right off the bat are going to be like, oh yeah, my challenges aren't really that clear. And so hopefully that sends them into like a place where they can potentially revise. And of course, we'll talk about revising next week, or not next week, but in the session 3. What I did about it. Did you list clear and specific steps that you took to overcome your challenges? Some students will have gone through that whole thing, and even though I've asked them 10 different questions, they won't have yet listed clear and specific steps, either because they couldn't think of them or, they just, missed that module somehow, even though it's linked, directly to walk through this. Did you describe everything or nearly everything that you can think of? Can you think of anything else you might have overlooked? And of course, students can go back to the what I did about it section and, brainstorm more. What I learned, does the end of your essay answer the question, so what? Does it do so in a surprising or illuminating way? And again, I'm encouraging students to focus on values. So the action item here is to send a feedback request email. If you have someone who's willing to send you feedback, now this could be you, their counselor, here's a sample email. And what you might get, depending on how you want to use this tool with your students, and I'll get to that in just a minute, is a bunch of students saying hi. And then some of them are I've seen this, they'll actually just copy and paste and they won't even put your name. They'll just be like, hi, name. I've just finished a draft of my narrative personal statement. This narrative is a clue for you, by the way, that this is going to be a challenges-based essay. And I'd love your feedback. Will you please help me by answering these questions? Thank you. Now, the reason I've given them this form is because I want to make this relatively simple for you to get back to them in about 3 to 5 minutes so that you read the essay and you can answer for them. Are the challenges clear and compelling? Yes, no, or sort of. Is it clear what the effects are? Yes, no, or sort of. Is it clear what they did to overcome the challenges? Yes, no, or sort of. And is it clear what I learned from these experiences? You can probably read an essay in 3 to 5 minutes and pretty quickly answer those questions. And based on the feedback that they get from you or whomever they send this to, it's going to send them into a different revising path here. Okay, I'm not going to get into that until next time. But essentially, once they've created their outline, they're going to be asked to write a draft. And again, I'm going to focus more intently on this next time. But depending on how you want to work with students, this is what they'll be sending out. If you don't have someone who can help you, and this is for counselors who don't want to necessarily be looking at tons and tons of drafts or just have a huge caseload, I tell them, hey, ask a friend who's also writing their essay right now. Or there's a writing, they can get a writing partner. There's like a little college application form where students can pair up with one another. Ask a teacher, mentor, sibling, parent, family, friend. Ideally, this is someone who knows what colleges are looking for. But if this person doesn't have much experience, just send them this 2-minute video. It basically is a 2-minute video that explains for folks, here's what colleges are looking for, here's how the tool works, and here's how to give them feedback. Because, a sensitive person can read through a page-long document and answer these questions. I think it's better if the person is a counselor, but again, not everybody can, do this with all their students. And if they still can't find someone, I tell them to potentially, rate the essay on their own, meaning, go through this chart on your own. Okay. So that's getting a little bit ahead. Let me just jump over to the montage path so that you see, for students who have finished the outlining thing, when they're writing the first draft is very similar. And then when it comes to getting feedback on their first draft, they're celebrating here, but this time it's minions. But I asked them different questions. So the questions to ask of a montage outline are, do you have a clear topic or thematic thread? Some students will create an outline and the theme or the topic isn't super clear. Do you have examples that are strong, specific, and visual? Can we see that? And I walk them through this in each of those outlines here. Okay. Clear values. Is your essay really giving a sense of the things that you want to fight for, right? The things that motivate you, all these things that give colleges great information about you. And then are there those so what moments of insight? And if they're not there yet, by the way, it's okay. And I tell them this, once students are revising, it should be, they'll get there eventually. And then again, I tell students that, they can send their feedback request email. Here, it's a little bit different. It's those questions that I just asked. And this is an email that you might receive. Is it clear what my topic is? Yes, no, or sort of. Are the examples strong, specific, and visual? Yes, no, sort of. Is it clear what values I'm trying to show in each paragraph? Are there moments of insight? And so you can, again, read it in 3 to 5 minutes and give quick feedback. Again, we'll talk about that a little bit next time. And then here's a 2-minute video that just basically walks folks how to do that. And again, I'm giving students the same option. They could either send it to you if you've agreed with them that you want to receive their essays and comment on their outlines, or here are some other options if they don't, if you can't give feedback to everybody. So I'm going to share my face just a second for variety. So one of the things that's going to be important as you're working through, as you're setting up how you're going to work with students is letting them know how available you want to be there's a thing that walks you through this. I'll show you in just a second, but I wanted to set it up. How available do you want to be during the boot camp? So if you are, let's say all your students are signed up for the boot camp, you've given them the emails, they're signed up, great. And you want to just let them work through it and then go and write their essays, great. The tool walks them through that and it tells them, here are all these different options and you can just let them know, hey, I unfortunately, I'm not on call to be able to answer all these, to be able to, look at all your drafts, unfortunately, but the tool walks you through in a particular way. So you should be able to do everything. And that's true. If you want to actually be on call during the boot camp, first of all, you can come in and sit on the sessions, which is great. And I'd love to have you join. And, students are getting the homework assignments on Monday night and Wednesday night and Friday night to be working through this. You can hear exactly what I'm saying to them, but you can also see it at the end of each module. And then you can say to students, hey, I'm on call this week. If you want to share with me your outlines and your drafts as you're working on them, great. And again, the thing that I'll talk about next time is how to basically walk through and in just a few minutes per draft, give students quick feedback. Now, just a quick case study. Last year, I did this with a few groups of students, and I was able to pretty effectively get back to, I had a course that I think like 200 students were on, and I gave them all permission to, send me drafts and outlines. And I was able to get back to them consistently with an hour or two's work a week. Now, not everybody sent me the drafts because, you know how it goes with students. But, for the students who did, I was able to basically ping back and say, great. And again, I'll talk more next time about how to do that. But I guess what I want to say is, even if you do have a large-ish caseload, the tool is set up in such a way that hopefully pretty quickly you'll be able to get back to students with feedback and direct them back into the tool. Because hopefully the purpose of this tool is really to save you time and to create something that students can continually go back and refer to and walk through. So that's option 2. Option 3 is kind of like a hybrid option. If you just want students to, work through the tool and then send you drafts like later in the summer or whenever they're ready, that's another possibility. So it's important to just let students know exactly what they can expect from you. All this is walked through. Let me just show you where on the tool this is all explained so that you'll have it. And then I'll get to some questions. Okay. So if you're on the tool, if you just go to the counselors tab here, which of these describes you? I want to have my students take a college essay workshop, then work through the tool on their own. Great. The tool is designed to take students step by step through the writing process. Great. Awesome. Another option is I want to lead students through my own brainstorming workshop and then have them work through the tool on their own. And if you want to do that, if you want to not even have them go through the boot camp, you can click here and there are some workshop outlines and there's even a PowerPoint template, so you can do that. If, and this is what we're going to talk about next time, you want to become more familiar with the tool so you can become faster at A, diagnosing essay issues, and B, pointing students to particular tool modules that will help them solve those issues. This is the guide to giving quick feedback using the tool that we'll walk through next time. And then here you'll see links to like the one-page guide to essay workshops, which is the same link as here. We just put it here for redundancy in the good way, hopefully. If you're wanting to map out workshops, here's how to use it as a curriculum. If you've got like 6 or 8 weeks and you want to map things out, this guide to giving feedback using the tool is the same as this one. If you're wondering how do you help students with cliche topics, this is the guide to that. And then all of the example essays that you'll see inside the tool are also linked here for quick reference. So if you're like, where was that, whatever it is, that this is me essay, I'd love to see that one. You'll find that here. So let's see what else. Oh, and then underneath this, and this is maybe obvious, but if you've got a question about anything, any part of the process, brainstorming, what are some good brainstorming exercises? Here they are. If your question's on outlining, do students need to outline? Yes. And it basically points them into the part of the tool. So if you're trying to think about like, how do students outline their essays? Well, a student has, done a particular outline, for example, the career outline, and you want to help them do a better job of that. They go into the career section and boom, they'll be able to find exactly that outline. So you can just copy and paste that in for them. Okay. Let me see. Did I cover everything? Why outlining is important? Yes. Why students tend to, yep. Example outlines, yes. How to outline, yes. 4 important elements to look for in each of them, yes. How to guide your students toward creating a great outline, yep. And I walked through those options. And I did it with 3 minutes to spare. So let me pause for a second and see what questions folks have. Oh, Lisa, somebody answered this, but do I think boot camps are best for juniors only? I think they're best for juniors because, other students are welcome to do it. It just depends on your class, and the kind of their motivation level. I don't want the whole high school experience to be all about, writing college essays. I worry about college creep, as it were, which is a weird thing to say and can be misinterpreted, but meaning, college stuff creeping into all of their years, because it's a pretty intensive, thing. But having said that, the other side of it, I've seen students walk through this in their sophomore year and they've gotten a lot out of it and written great personal statements and learned a lot about themselves. So in terms of as a personal growth tool, if they've got some time to do it, they've got some support, from you or from your team, then I think it could be an awesome thing to do. But I think it's probably best for juniors. Let's see. And then you, Jenny, your question got answered by Stevie. Let's see. Do I read a student's outline first and then help them list the questions? So I think I answered this question, but maybe I didn't. I think I spoke after pitching, but in short, maybe you saw the way I did it. I want students to kind of basically walk through the whole deal and create their outline first. And they're going to have seen that list of questions. Okay. If they feel like the outline could be, thickened in particular ways, I'm going to point them to whichever part of the tool is appropriate. So for example, let's say the student has sent me an outline and the part on, what they did about it, isn't as, awesome as it could be. Then I might go here. Let me just go back to this. So I'm going to go to the outliner. I need to share my screen again. So let's say a student sent me an outline and again, I'm going to talk more about this next week, but, let's say that in terms of the how to outline a narrative draft, what I did about it. Let's say that in that, they haven't done a ton on what I did about it. So then I would say, go into the what I did about it and, answer a bunch of these questions. So I would send them to the part of the tool that I feel like they'll need most, whatever that is. All right. I think I have some parents who'd want to sign up their kiddos, but I mainly want juniors. Okay, cool. I got you. Totally. Yep. All right. Any other questions? We've got a few minutes here. if we don't have a ton of questions, then we can wrap it early. My brother and I are big fans of meetings should take as long as they should take. Any other questions? I'll pause for just another half minute here or so. If nothing else comes in, we'll call it. Reminder to hydrate. Okay. I mean, so if no questions, let's call it. And if you've got specific questions that pop up for you or that are related to tech or logistics, tomorrow you're going to get an email. And if you're watching this recorded, you'll have already received this, but you'll get an email saying, here's how to sign up students. So the next step is to just make sure everybody's signed up. And, they're going to get a series of emails for how to walk through the steps. And we'll jump on and they'll jump into, all the sessions. And, quick ones came in. Ooh, Pei-Ching is asking, can the supplemental workshop be held earlier? Good question. Let's just do a quick poll. I'd love to know. I'm going to end the first poll. I'd love to know, would anybody else sorry, I'm starting the same poll, but I'm going to actually, let's do a new poll. Let me just do this. Here we go. Would you prefer that the supplemental essay crash course be held in August, let's say early September? Currently it's scheduled for early October, but because I've got a bunch of y'all on the call right now, and then I'll just add another answer some other time. So I'm going to just publish this poll real quick. And I just love to ask y'all, would you rather that supplemental essays crash course, which is currently scheduled for October 2nd and 3rd, would you rather that be held in August, in early September, which is right when students get back from school, or would you rather be held in early? Oh, okay. So folks are coming with in August or early September. Okay. Some folks are saying early October. Cool. We're kind of split right now between, ooh, okay. Now it's a three-way tie, which is problematic for me because it means that maybe we'll add another option for that. Okay. Because it's so tricky, right? How do you get, a bunch of schools all on the same calendar? So we've got 50% of you are saying, let's do it in August. 30% of you so far are saying do it early September. And only 20% of you are saying do it in early October. So maybe we'll add another session. My brother, Devin, who helps me decide these things, is on the call. So Dev, I'm just going to screenshot this. Here is our feedback on when folks would prefer that we hold this. So thanks for bringing that up because we're really open to feedback and we can ask, we can add things. Michael's asking, our high school juniors will be doing the essay boot camp. Now questions are coming in, which is great. They're going to do the boot camp August 9th through 13th. What should we have them do before the boot camp so that we have the best chance to finish their essays? I mean, it's going to be tough for them to finish, Michael, at the August one because I would say the best way to get students to finish their essays would be to actually do either the May one or the June one, because the best chance for them to finish it is they're going to have 2 months over the summer to work on it. So that would be my advice, if at all possible. In terms of doing the pre-work, I mean, what I would say is you could share the tool with them ahead of time. So, or you could, if that's impossible, Michael, share the tool with them and let students know that they could just start working through the tool, because motivated students should be able to walk through it and get their work done. They're just not going to have the sort of cohort vibe that they'll have when they get on for the boot camps. So the reason we scheduled the August one as well is that, some folks just can't do the May and the June times. But to me, like I said, early on, the earlier that the students can get, the more time they can have. And the experience that I've had is when students go through a week-long boot camp in August, if they can't get it done, they start to feel kind of stressed and or they failed somehow. But it just, it takes time. But I guess the short answer too is share the tool with them ahead of time and say, feel free to go through these modules and start working through them. They could do the brainstorming ahead of time. They can do the outlining if they want to. And then on the live sessions that we do in August, I mean, I'm basically going to be, walking them through it, but I'm really happy each day to look at students' ideas and drafts. And that's what I'm going to be doing and giving feedback on, so students can kind of get a sense of, why certain topics might work more easily than others. Let's see. This is a lot to absorb. I can't wait to try the tools myself. Yes, Leanne. And that is the feedback that I get consistently from counselors and from my coaches that I work with, is they're like, Ethan, this is so much. Great, Ethan, but it's going to take some time. It's going to take, I mean, I think it'll take a whole cycle of working with it to actually figure out what's where. We try to make it as, as clean and simple as possible. And I welcome your feedback on what would make things easier to find. Let me just show you real quick. Your homepage, just keep coming back, Leanne, to the counselor resources page where you've got that, I have a question about. That's going to be a great homepage. And then in terms of that FAQ page, here's the table of contents that walks through, all the modules. So when you're trying to have a quick reference guide, that's going to be a good one to come back to or to potentially bookmark. Katie, do we have to choose one of the boot camps or can we do any of them? You can do any of them and students can pick any of them, right? So, students have the option to pick from any of the boot camps. So you don't have to pick for them. Students will also be doing the UC PIQ boot camp. Awesome. Excited to have them. And, and that's why we're doing one early and one later. But like I said, I'm a fan of giving students the summer to work on these because I think that's just a great time for them to be able to marinate. They're not swamped with school responsibilities. So if possible, and you can get them in earlier, great. If not, it is what it is. Let's see how our poll turned out. Yeah. So folks are asking for it earlier. So I'm really open to that, Pei-Shing. I'm really glad you said that because we're getting ready to, to send that out tomorrow. So you might, who knows, you might tomorrow see a couple different options popping up. So Devin, I'm sure, is frantically behind the scenes going, are you serious? We're gonna have to add this, but thanks for your input on that. So last call, any questions before we wrap? Okay. Again, if you've got questions, feel free to email us. help@collegeessayguide.com is the place. If you're not signed up or if you're still on the fence, we really welcome your input on what has you on the fence. It's certainly not a financial concern because it's pay what you can, but I'd love to just hear, what is some of the concerns that you have or questions that you're asking. Please let us know. help@collegeessayguide.com. And I'll put that in here. And yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for using them. Give me more feedback, Pei-Shing. We're here for you. All right. Talk soon.